There have been times in my life when I've been out of God's will, and I didn't like it. So, and I know, God has not released me to go to the corporate world. And I know you guys, you're pastors. You've heard the story of Jonah. I'm not so inclined. I don't want to get swallowed by a big fish.
Right. So, I know, man.
And so there is a healthy dose of fear of me, of knowing, hey, God has placed this call on my life. And if I'm willing to openly rebel and pursue something out of God's will, I don't want to bring that consequence on myself, but even more so my family.
Hey everyone, you're listening to the Other Pastors Podcast. I'm Pastor Colt Straub.
Pastor Jonathan.
And we have a special guest, Pastor Chris Lee, an old friend. Chris, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Doing wonderful. It's so awesome to reconnect with you. Just for everybody who is tuning in, who has listened to the Other Pastors Podcast before, I have a long history with Chris because when I was 16 years old, there was a conference called the Xtreme Conference in Branson, Missouri, where I'm from. And I showed up early and saw them setting up a merchandise table and asked if they needed any help. And then they asked me to do another task and then another task. And as a 16-year-old, Chris, who was in charge of the Xtreme Conference in Branson, allowed me to do things and go places and drive people around that as a 16-year-old, I had no business driving these people around, doing these things. And so I was able to work with him for about 5 years, I think, with the Xtreme Conference. Was there year after year and helped them out. And I was that Christian kid that I listened to Third Day, DC Talk, Audio Adrenaline, all these guys. And again, within just a few minutes of knowing this guy, he was like, hey, I need you to go pick up Third Day from the movie theater. They're headlining tonight. And it's like, what? And so I have so many incredible memories. We're going to talk through all of that. But Chris is now the administration pastor on the executive team of First in Bentonville, Arkansas. He's doing awesome things. He just finished his master's right now, so we're celebrating that. We're going to talk about that a little bit. But Chris, again, it's great to have you on the podcast with us, man.
Man, I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here, and I listened to a couple of the podcasts over the last couple of weeks, and really enjoyed hearing those conversations and discussion, and appreciate you guys letting me lend my voice to the conversation.
Oh, Bentonville isn't that like Walmart City?
Yeah, we often joke that we are First Baptist Walmart. So
First Baptist Walmart. That's awesome.
You cannot drive around Bentonville without seeing Walmart's footprints. Very prominently displayed all around. So
I bet they even sponsor your church. It's like First Benton, brought to you by Walmart.
Brought to you by Walmart.
Well, we have, we do, a lot of community events and like that. And so we're constantly engaged with Walmart because it's, you obviously want them on your team, and they're very supportive of community activities and community events. And so
very cool. Yeah, I have a youth leader who's an executive, so he spends a lot of time out there. So
yeah,
I was like, I know Bentonville.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's funny.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, Chris, we'd love to hear a little bit about what got you into ministry. Like, how did you get started? I know you came to Christ at 17. You felt like you were called into ministry at 18. Tell us a little bit about that and how you got into the conferences and your story a little bit.
Yeah. So, came to Christ at 17. Had no church background. I was oblivious to the church world when I came to Christ at 17. Grew up in a great moral family. But didn't have any interaction. I had a grandmother who was a strong Christian, and so I kind of knew it on the periphery of life. But in high school, had some Christian friends. My junior year, started inviting me to church, and through that process, got plugged into a local church, came to Christ, was baptized, and within the year felt a call to ministry. Really wrestled with that for the first several years because my idea of ministry, and a lot about what this podcast was, is like, hey, you're called to ministry. Well, you're called to be the pastor, the senior pastor, the guy who preaches week in and week out. And even as an 18, 19, 20-year-old, I didn't see myself doing that. I do love to teach. I've got a heart for discipleship, but I just really didn't see myself in that role. And so my first foray into ministry, I graduated high school. Our church in Georgia had a partnership with an association up in Wisconsin. and they just said, hey, they need some help with their student ministry. Hey, you've been plugged into the student ministry here now for a year and a half. Would you be willing to go up there and kind of help them just set things up, get the ball rolling? Basically, hey, what you've learned here, take it up there, emulate it, and help them get the ball rolling. And so I graduated high school. A couple months later, I find myself living in Wisconsin. I came back from that experience, had some great highlights and some great lows during that time. My youth pastor at the time, I came back and I said, you've lost your ever-loving mind sending an 18-year-old to go do that task. I was ill-equipped and ill-informed of what I was getting myself into, but we did see a lot of great fruit during that time. And so it really was a good time for both the folks in Wisconsin and myself. But I got back from that, was going to be going to college there in Atlanta, Kennesaw State University. And my best friend through high school, his older brother was working with the crew that did Xtreme conferences and did Winter Jam and all that. And I just said, hey, if you guys ever need any help, man, I'd love the job. I'd love to get plugged in with you guys and do whatever I can. And a month after that, my best friend's older brother quit. He was graduating college and kind of going into his career segment, and they said, hey, well, we need some help. You want a part-time job? And so I started helping them out with setup, making phone calls, setting up meetings, appointments, helping artists, musicians, and stuff like that, and did that for about 6 months. And we got into the fall of that year. They were getting ready to kick off registration for Xtreme Winter that year, and they just said, hey, we need a full-time guy. Would you be willing to come on full time? They had a relationship with Liberty University, and they said, so, hey, we can help you with your education, get you transferred over. So I enrolled at Liberty, did the majority of my degree online, but got plugged in. And, at the time, Xtreme was one event, two, we had just moved into two, doing Branson. And Winter Jam was 2 or 3 weekends a year, with a few thousand people at an event, great growing ministry. And I just found myself dropped into the middle of it. And the roller coaster began there. It was buckle up, check your safety harnesses, make sure your lap belt's in position because you're getting ready to go for a ride.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. That's incredible, man. And again, I can't overstate how much of an effect that just being a part of that, being in and around everything that God was doing through through the Xtreme conference during that time, just the effect that it had on me, just even seeing organizationally, like what I do now, serving in the capacity that I do at this church, just getting to see how an organization, like how you structure a big event like that and how you, you make the things happen. And it was powerful. So again, thank you for the opportunity to be able to, you allowed a 16-year-old to do all that stuff. One of my craziest memories, just jumping in, was I do remember one day, I think it was Plus One, which was, for those who don't know,
that's the boy band, wasn't it?
The boy band of the 90s. And I really, I wasn't, honestly, I wasn't a big fan of that particular kind of music at that time. Again, I was more of the rock scene, but I remember Plus One was there, and we'd hung out beforehand, and I got to know the guys just a little bit. And then right in the middle of the concert, I was backstage chatting with somebody, and you grabbed me and was like, come with me. And you were very serious. Like, typically you were very laid back, but you're like, come with me. And you stood me in front of the backstage entrance from the auditorium to the backstage. And I was, I think 17, chubby little boy, like not intimidating to anybody. And you're like, stand here and don't let anybody pass. Like, I just imagine in my mind that you were afraid they're like, I was about to get ransacked by a group of 12-year-old girls, just like trying to get backstage or something. Like, I was the bodyguard for the backstage entrance. And it was like, this isn't going to work, but I'm going to do it because Chris told me to. But I'm sure that was just one of many things, man. Those type of events, they happen so quickly, and you've got all these different artists coming in, different factors. I remember one time Audio Adrenaline's bus broke down like 10 miles from the church, so I had to take my Toyota Corolla and go pick up Audio Adrenaline in my car, and fit as much stuff in the trunk as I could.
Yeah.
And I think we had a couple of truck beds too that we were filling up too. But with that type of event, with evangelism events that are just you do the best you can. You're constantly problem solving, and that must have been a very interesting way to just trial by fire, make things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially in the early days, we're trying to get this ministry up off the ground. We're seeing kids saved, come to Christ. Youth pastors are really engaging with us. But we didn't have a lot of money. So when problems arose, we had to get creative to solve the problems. I think even in a church setting that I'm in now, so often, a problem arises and the solution is let's throw some money at this. If we just got enough money to throw some money at the problem, and we can fix it. But that's not always the best solution. It is a solution, but it's not always the best solution. And so, we've had some meetings in the last couple of weeks on some renovation plans and stuff that we've been working on here at the church. And if we just said, hey, we need to solve this problem. How could we solve this problem without spending a penny? And it's forced us to come up with even some better ideas than what we would have come up with if we just had to throw money at it. So we got to do some really cool things with Xtreme, just because we had to figure it out. We didn't have the money. We laugh because later on, we kind of had an unspoken, like, look, if we had a problem at Xtreme and you could fix it for less than $1,000, spend the money, get it done, get it fixed. Well, in the early days, we didn't have $1,000 to spend. It was like, hey, do I want to get paid and be able to feed my family? Or do I want to fix this problem? Well, I've got to do both, and I got to feed my family. So I've got to think of another solution, because if I spend that money, I'm not going to eat.
I think that's the best way to come up, with where you have to be resourceful.
Yeah.
Yeah. My first 7 years as a youth pastor, I wasn't paid. I had no budget. And so you have to be very creative on how you're going to create revenue or accomplish anything. But I don't, I love that I had to go through that. I mean, obviously I'm at a place now where, that's not an issue. We just had a fundraiser where we raised $37,000, things like that. But in the early days, it was like 1,400 car washes, like whatever we can do to make things happen. But I'm thankful for that season.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, it does definitely forges you in the fire and makes you, think more creatively.
Yeah. You mentioned that we talked a little bit about being executive pastor. I mean, Colt and I kind of know some of those challenges, and it's actually the perfect position for what our podcast is trying to reach. So we serve on the executive team here as well. So a good question for you is, what drives you as an executive pastor?
It is the mission. The joke, and I've got a great relationship. We've got a great staff here at First Bentonville. But the joke, and even people, leaders in the church that kind of knows, like, well, hey, you're the business guy at the church. Like you're the business guy. Well, the first thing I tell, like, if it was all business, this is a really terrible business to be in. Like,
it's true.
This is a terrible business to be in. I could go do what I do now in the corporate world and make more money and have less headaches if it was just about the business part of things. But so what drives me is that my business, what I am doing, allows the ministry to move forward. Policies and procedures. Nobody likes talking about them. No one likes thinking through them. No one likes handling those things. But those are the things that allow ministry to continue to move forward safely and effectively. By saying, here's some guardrails that don't get us in trouble as a ministry, as a church, as individuals. When I came in here to the church had no employee handbook, had over 20 staff members, no employee handbook, had never had one.
Wow.
And so we just kind of went through, and you had different administrations that had hired different employees over, a 20, 25 year period in recent history that were hired with different parameters, different expectations. And so one of my first tasks when I got here was like, hey, let's get everybody on the same page. We've got a staff of over 20 folks. Let's make sure that we're all operating on the same page. And it brought some unity to the team, because, hey, this isn't what I'm doing and I'm doing this over here. Hey, collectively, this is what we believe. This is how we're going to function. This is how we're going to have to operate. And then seeing that. So, knowing that, hey, I'm setting budget. I'm helping, a lot of times with our student team, they'll bring me in. That's not my direct lane. But because of, Colt, as you mentioned, my background with Xtreme doing large events, when they're doing big events, they'll bring me in and just say, hey, sit here. And if we're walking through doing this event, if you catch something that we're missing, let us know. And so we went through a recent event, and I just had the opportunity to say, like, they went down their list and they had, like 15 items on their budget. And, just looking through it, I said, well, hey, 2 or 3 of those items, I know you thought you could do that for $500. It's going to cost you $750 to $1,000. So you're already going to go over budget. Hey, here's 2 or 3 things that you don't have on your budget. Here's 2 or 3 things that you have on your budget. I know they seem cool, but are they going to bring a return? Like, what's the goal of this event? And what is your desired outcome? And do either one of these help? And the reality was, when they came back to it, said, hey, no, we can get rid of those things.
Right.
They may be cool, but they don't bring a really return. And our desired outcome was to see, our students come to Christ and disciple our existing believers. So just knowing that, hey, the things that I'm doing are what help the ministry go forward. And hey, our student pastor doesn't have to worry about budgetary issues. Yes, there is a component of that, but the day-to-day stuff he doesn't have to worry about. I had a meeting yesterday with our missions pastor, and we were working through some of our partnerships and some of our relationships, and just saying, hey, okay, he articulated what he was trying to do, and I was just able to tell him, hey, you're good, go do it. I'll take care of all the back end stuff, and you go get it done. And so, knowing that what we do is what allows the church, because if you pull the administrative side out of the church, it all comes crumbling down.
Everybody's flying by the seat of their pants.
Yeah. And that's what churches get in trouble. Financial impropriety, get in trouble with the IRS. Hey, you're not tracking stuff the way you're supposed to. And even legal matters of, hey, not dotting your I's and crossing your T's. So just knowing that, hey, doing those things, I do connect that dots, and I do remind myself that on a regular basis, that, hey, doing this is what allows ministry to move forward.
Okay, you got to tell us about the snowstorm. There's a snowstorm weekend.
Yes. So back earlier this year, and it's funny because we the previous year we had a couple snowstorms. We used money to clear our parking lot, do all the preparation work. We've got a great outside company that comes in. They've got the snow plow, skid steers, and all that to get everything prepped. But as we were doing our budget, so we do a calendar year, January through December budget. We vote on it in October. So this past October, I was working through some of the budget, and I said, guys, I've been here now. By that point, I've been there 2 winters. This is my third winter being here. And I said, we've had snowstorms both times. We don't have it in the budget for that. Like, we've made it work and all that, but we need to go ahead and put some money there. So we'd allocated some money to cover that when it did come. So it was like, hey, there's no questions. Pull it from here, make it happen. The snowstorm hits middle of the week, Wednesday, Thursday. We get 1 or 2 snow ice events, typically not anything that major, but we got 8 inches on a Thursday. And the weather wasn't supposed to clear up until Sunday, Monday, but the roads were going to get cleared. We had to have church on Sunday. And so what's it going to take for us to make church happen on Sunday? So, mobilizing, having the conversation, like the sun was supposed to come out that Friday. Well, we knew that if we didn't get the parking lot clear quickly, it was going to start melting. It was going to freeze because the temperature wasn't getting above freezing until Monday. And so it was going to freeze. The parking lot was going to be ice. You were never going to get it cleared. So, just working through those details of, hey, what do we need to do? We've got a great group of men here that love helping the church. They love doing outdoor stuff. So with a couple phone calls Friday afternoon, they're clearing sidewalks, salting walkways, and getting it done. Well, by Saturday, everything was done. I mean, we were ready to have church. The city was working on getting the streets and everything cleared. But by Saturday morning, I was able to tell my pastor, I said, hey, as long as people can get safely to the church, we can have church. We are ready to go. We're operational as of right now. And it did. And as a matter of fact, we had a slightly above average attendance that Sunday. I think people being holed up in their house for 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, they were tired of sitting in the snow.
they were tired of getting out. So yeah, our numbers were up, about 5% over for normal, just because everyone's like, hey, I'm tired. I haven't been able to go anywhere. They couldn't travel. They couldn't do anything.
It's like,
So
we can
they
go
were
to
able
church.
to-
Let's go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
Let go.
well, Chris, I love that story, and I love what you do. As I think it's so important in ministry, and even as a creative. A lot of times, like creatives, they don't like to have boundaries. But I, as a creative myself, having somebody who, and we have somebody on our staff who does the same thing, that just lets us know our boundaries, let us know how we can operate effectively in ministry. And I think that's such an important role. So thank you for what you do, man. That's awesome. And so as everybody knows, and I forgot to mention this at the front, of course, the Other Pastors podcast is for executive pastors, children's pastors, youth pastors, worship pastors, basically anybody who's not the main guy on campus. You're not the main guy on campus, you're the other pastor. And that's what this podcast is about. And so we want to talk to people just about what it's like to be in ministry long term. Obviously, you've been doing conferences, and I know you've been on a mission board for, what was that board that you're a part of, or were you?
Yeah, I was on I served several years on the North American Mission Board as the operations manager for evangelism and leadership. So we traveled across the country, Canada, Puerto Rico, helping pastors mobilize their people for their evangelism efforts, and then training pastors of how to be better leaders. One of the conversations that we often had, and this isn't just for senior pastors, this goes across the board, that most pastors that we see getting fired or burn out isn't because of bad doctrine, bad theology, and struggling with that. It's poor leadership. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of what we did was invest in their leadership. That's my master's that I just finished that you mentioned is a master's in leadership. So investing in myself. How can I become a better leader for the long haul?
I love that. And so then what was it like going from being in ministries where you're ministering directly to youth pastors, you're ministering directly more of like looking more at the broader church and ministering to pastors, showing them how to be better, and then suddenly you're submitting yourself under one senior pastor and like giving your life to fulfilling his vision? Tell me about what that process was like.
Well, so I was coming to an end of season. I felt like I was going to end up in my current role years prior. I really felt a call on my life, but I felt God had me where He wanted me for that season of life. So there wasn't this, discontentment. There wasn't this, hey, I'm not being obedient. Like, hey, I'm where I'm at right now. God's called me to this position, this part of life. But here's where I'm going to end up. And even working with youth pastors, I had the privilege of working with senior pastors during my time at Xtreme, of doing leadership events. There was a great event for many years called Timothy Barnabas that traveled different parts, would have pastors and their wives just investing in ministering to their lives. So I had an opportunity to serve with them for a long period of time. But the biggest transition and it was the most difficult thing and the biggest blessing, is the day in, day out investment in the same group of people.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Here you are in the local church. There is no running, I'm working with a student pastor. Hey, we do an event. We have some conversations. The event's over with. I may or may never talk to this guy again. Do in Timothy Barnabas. Hey, get an opportunity to love on these guys, encourage these guys, see how we can best serve them. And I had, I've got, my kids laugh at the number of people I have in my phones, but it's just pastors and ministry leaders that I've met over the years. And so a lot of them I've stayed in contact with, but a lot of them, it just didn't, for whatever, reason, the relationship didn't continue on. But now here you are in the local church, and you do have to deal long-term. So there is that, I had to have that mindset of here, there's an intentional effort to invest in these people day after day, of having lunches, having dinners, going to coffee, whatever it may be with these people. Cause now you're here in the long haul. Like, you're not just trying to get them to the next event. You're living life with these people day after day, week after week. And just pouring in. Yeah, it's a discipleship process. And I've always had a heart for that. When I was with Xtreme, I was still actively involved in a local church. I've taught small groups over the years. I've got to lead stewardship in my local church for many years of helping people financially manage their resources that God had given them. And so I've always had a heart for discipleship. And this was just a great outlet of being able to invest day in and day out in those folks.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And then, of course, as I mentioned, so much of what we do is talking about leading from the middle, because when we lead from the middle, we are again accountable to somebody who's over us, who's carrying the vision, and we oversee people, and we're trying to influence down, and we're trying to influence up and all around. And as I mentioned to you before, that the statistics of longevity in these particular positions sometimes are sad. They're very sad that the people will train and study and work to become active in church staff, and then they get disenchanted, and years later, or a couple of years later, they want to find something else. They find a secular job. They find doing something in a regular job because they just don't want to put up with the headache anymore. Maybe that's because they lose sight of the vision. They lose sight of whatever. But I guess, Chris, what would be your encouragement as somebody who's worked outside of churches, kind of with broader churches in general, and then now that you are working within a local church?
I think you, first of all, you've got to have a very clear sense of your calling.
Right.
I think, and this isn't a broad sweeping statement, but I think a lot of people get into ministry. They've got a great heart. They want to serve the Lord. And they just look at it as a great opportunity, but they haven't had a calling on their life. And just like I said, before, I could do what I'm doing in the corporate world and go make a lot more money and like that. God won't let me do it. I haven't tried to do it. I don't want to do it. I love what I'm doing. So you have to have a deep sense of that personal call on your life. And there are going to be times, difficult times, but that's what kept me returning. There's been those times where man, this is tough, man. This is, we had a couple weeks back, no major event, but just several things happened over the course of that week. Had some issues with some staff members and their family, had some issues, major health issues with some people in our church, had another family going through. It was a hard week. I mean, I remember, getting to Friday, walking in the door and, putting my backpack down and getting my shoes off, and my wife comes in and she can discern by my body language exactly how I'm doing before I can say anything. She's like, how's everything going? And you doing okay? And I was like, this has been a hard week. This has been a hard week.
Right.
I just felt like I was a first responder of just dealing with tragedies all week long.
I feel that one.
And so, just having that sense, but hey, this is where God has placed me. This is where God has called me. And this isn't the end. This is a season. This is a period. Within over the next couple of weeks, we had Easter. We baptized 8 people over Easter weekend. I had the privilege of baptizing 4 of them. This past Sunday, I baptized 3 adults and children, students, the whole gamut. So, it's that reminder that, hey, and I think it may be God just, tipping the hat to me. He's like, hey, Chris, I'm still at work. Hey, you live in a broken world with broken people. There are going to be some hard times, but there is a purpose. And seeing those people come to Christ and follow through with baptism is an amazing thing.
Absolutely. And you definitely, I like what you said, because, you definitely have the qualifications to be infinitely successful in the secular world. And it's not in the pre-interview, but I would ask, how do you avoid the temptation of that, of just knowing, hey, I can go make 3 times as much, probably deal with a lot less stress, because people kind of forget that there's a spiritual aspect to this that you wouldn't have to necessarily be subjected to in a secular world. So kind of like what are your personal conversations with God? Can you go in a little bit of detail on that?
First of all, I love what I do. I absolutely love it. And that purpose, I had a phone call yesterday. I had a phone call yesterday. I knew there was going to be some tension. It's one of those awkward conversations you have to have in ministry. You could have a similar conversation in the corporate world, but I'm having this conversation, and I just felt like I'm doing everything I can to try to shepherd this person and guard their heart, guard their mind. In the corporate world, it'd be easy just to say, get over it.
Right. Yeah.
suck it up, Buttercup. You're going to have to deal with it. But I didn't. I just found, walking through and wrapping up the conversation going, hey, I just want to make sure, like, you're real clear, like, you're hearing my heart on this. Like, hey, I know this is a difficult conversation. I know this probably wasn't the answer you wanted. But I hope you understand where we're coming from. Like, this isn't anything against you, what's going on in your life. This is just something that we have to address. And it was a great conversation, and all that. And so I love what I do. There have been times in my life when I've been out of God's will, and I didn't like it. So, and I know, God has not released me to go to the corporate world. And I know you guys, you're pastors. You've heard the story of Jonah. I'm not so inclined. I don't want to get swallowed by a big fish.
Right.
So,
I know, man.
And so there is a healthy dose of fear of me, of knowing, hey, God has placed this call on my life. And if I'm willing to openly rebel and pursue something out of God's will, I don't want to bring that consequence on myself, but even more so my family.
Man, I love that. I love that answer. Yeah.
I know. I want my wife and kids to know that, hey, Dad's following the Lord. When we moved out here, so we moved from Georgia to Bentonville, Arkansas. My wife had spent her whole life in a 5-mile radius. My kids were born at the same hospital my wife was at. Was the only home they had known. And when God placed the call on my life, and we started talking through this, everybody was on board. There wasn't a sales pitch. They were like, hey, let's go check it out and find out what it was. And the family, people asked, they still do ask, hey, you guys settled in, transition's been great. It's really been perfect. Like, the only hard thing, I mean, you miss family and friends and stuff like that, but there hasn't been a time where I'm like, I'd really like to be back in Georgia. Like, this is home. Like, this was home real quick. We moved here in January. We had to go back for some stuff for my daughter's school that May. And my wife and kids went early. I came back a little while after that, a few days after, for some school stuff. And we're staying. We stayed in a hotel for a couple nights, and we're laying there in bed. My wife and I are talking, and she just says, "Hey, I'm ready to be back. Like, could we look at catching an earlier flight back home? We were going to stay for several days after we had to be there. But could we look at, shifting our flights and stuff?" She's like, "I'm ready to be home."
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so here we are in technically our hometown where we, grew up, started our marriage, our kids came home, but it was no longer home. Bentonville, Arkansas was our home.
It's kind of like God giving you the desires of your heart when you stay in His will. Like, He will literally give you a desire. It's amazing.
I definitely feel that too, because I grew up in Branson until I was 30, and then we moved to Oklahoma City, and now 11 years later, this is home. It's like when we go to Branson, when we go to Wichita, where my in-laws live, it's like we have a great time there for as long as we're there. We catch up with friends, but then it's like, let's go home. Because this is where God has called us, and that's what we've given our lives to. So I'm going to jump off script here just a little bit before we jump into this next section, because I've already shared a couple of fun, interesting stories about my experience. But man, you have rubbed elbows with everybody in the Christian industry, and I would imagine, and I have to imagine that you have some crazy stories. So I would love to hear just like something that you're willing to share. Something that's
this
if you didn't sign a non-disclosure agreement with these guys.
Well, this gets into some treacherous waters that can get.
I'm down. Quick. Let's go. I got my boots on. Let's go.
And so, no, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. Okay. I will say some funny stories though. One of the things, especially with like Xtreme and Colt, you were there as kind of that meteoric rise of Xtreme. We went from one event to 6-7 events in a year. 4 and 5 events happening within a 1 week span. You got artists, speakers flying. Branson, Columbus, Ohio, down to Houston, to Gatlinburg. I mean, you just got all this crazy stuff going on. and it is a small world. So you get closely connected. Some of my best friends are still, from, are in that world or were in that world and have now moved on to different arenas in life. But you're backstage, you're hanging out, and you're just trying to keep yourself entertained because, and one of the battles of doing those events like that, we would do 3 of the exact same event back to back to back, grueling hours, long days, long nights. And, by the time you get to the second, third event, well, you got new groups of people coming in, and you're trying to get everyone, you're trying to keep your team, everybody motivated. Like, hey, this next group that's coming in, this is their first time.
Yeah.
They're expecting our best.
Right.
And so, hey, we've been doing this now for 5, 6, 7 days. We got 2 or 3 more days to go. We've got to keep. So, the artists are backstage, they're away from home. You're away from home. The crew's away from home. Everybody, you're in these, foreign cities. And so we would often get back there and we'd just say, hey, we're going to come up with a keyword or phrase that you have to work into speakers. Like, hey, you need to work this into your message.
That sounds fun, man. I love that.
Oh, it was great. And we would do it with the artists. Like, hey, you're gonna say some things between songs and stuff. Like, hey, here's a thing that you gotta do. And so we would work some stuff, in there, and it was just funny. And the best part is they would do it in the crowd, like, and we'd all be, we're all watching. Everyone's on high alert, like waiting for this to happen. And they would say it, they would do it. And the crowd's just like, they're nodding their head like, oh yeah, that makes perfectly good sense to me. And we're backstage dying. I mean, this is the funniest moment in the world. And they're coming off stage, artists, speakers are coming off stage, and they're looking at you going, I hate you right now.
Oh man.
This is terrible.
I love
this is terrible. But we had such a great time. It was such a good, a great community. Tom Richter he's spoken at the events for many years. He's a pastor down in Coleman, Alabama, a very dear friend. I was down in Houston last week. A group of administrative executive pastors getting together, about 25, 30 of us, just talking shop, iron sharpen iron. Hey, what are you facing? Hey, have you guys dealt with this? And kind of passing around ideas and stuff. But my buddy Tom, his executive pastor, was with us. We've never met before, and so we're actually riding. One of the nights while we were down there in Houston, we went to an Astros game, and we're riding in the car. Or riding in one of the church vans that was hosting us, and we're riding down, had about a 30-minute drive, and the guy sitting next to me is a good friend. He's a executive pastor in Atlanta. We've known each other for a few years, so we're kind of just talking shop, shooting the breeze. And I hear this guy behind me talk about, and he's talking about his pastor. He's like, yeah, he was born in Kentucky. Good old country boy, but he went to Yale Divinity School for seminary, and then he pastored one of the most ethnically diverse churches in New York City. And obviously 3 odd skill sets right there. Like, you don't hear a bunch of country boys from going to Yale Divinity School and then pastoring a multi-ethnic church. And so I look over my shoulder. And I look at this guy, and because before, earlier in the day, it was the first day we were there, we had just met and exchanged names. That was it. And I just turned around and looked, and I was like, are you talking about Tom? And he's like, looks at me, he's like, yeah, how do you know? And I was like, I know Tom, really well. And, we've been good buds. I knew him when he was in New York before he moved down to Alabama, and just a great family. And so you get these bonds that, to a certain degree are unbreakable, and, you've got that commonality. But yeah, there's a lot of, crazy stuff. As a 21-year-old, here I am, bringing on a 16-year-old colt to come help out at a conference, and doing stuff that now as a father, I've got a 19-year-old and a 14-year-old that, my daughter, someone reached out the other day. I was like, hey, would, your daughter want to, go on the road? And I was like, no.
Because
like,
nope.
Yeah. I was like, no, she's not going out on the road. I was like, well, I mean, did she say I was like, as a dad, no, she's not. She's in school right now. She can't.
Right.
If the money's good enough, she'll probably like, hey, I can figure out. No, she's focused on her school right now.
Yeah, I have an almost 19, 16, and a 14. So
yeah,
there's no way.
Yeah, and I have a 16-year-old son, and it's like, Yeah, there's no way I'd let him do those things. I barely let him drive his car by himself, let alone driving anybody else. Good.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you just see, I mean, I think, and it's not all, they change, but there's a reason why a lot of those artists like have lasted a long time. It's a testament to their faithfulness to what they're doing. And then there's a reason why some, they came in for a year or so and faded out. I'm by no means making a blanket statement, but a lot of times you could tell they were in for the fame, the fortune, and all that. And when we were doing our events, it was about ministry. And so like, hey, if you're here about getting rich and making a name for yourself, there's other places you can do it. You're not going to do it on our platform. Like we want people that are going to love on kids, share the gospel with them, live a life of excellence so that these kids can say, hey, I want to be like them when I grow up,
right?
And be that positive role model.
I love that. So as we've talked about, just because you have worked with so many, like your executive pastor group that you hang out with, you've trained pastors on a macro level. I imagine you actually have more so than most people a good macro view of the church as a whole, at least in America. And I'd love to just hear from your perspective, from that perspective, what keeps you hopeful, or what are you hopeful about in the church as a whole?
Yeah, I'm going to speak in my local context because that's the sphere I'm in. But sure. I think especially talking with the guys last week, we're all on the same page on this. God is still in the life-changing business.
Yes, He is.
Culture has changed. We've got to do our part in helping the people that we minister to, our church members, the people that God has entrusted in our local body. We've got to help them learn how do we contextualize the gospel for that? That's what people don't realize about our area in Northwest Arkansas. We're a pretty diverse area. People think, Arkansas and rural and country, but here we are with Walmart and JB Hunt, Tyson Foods. So we've got these three major corporations right here in Northwest Arkansas that bring in people literally from around the world. I was at a luncheon hosted by I think their actual name is the Northwest Arkansas Indian Fellowship. And so we've got a large population of people who have immigrated here from India that are serving in different capacities with these corporations, and just want to be faithful. We've got a good number of Indian families in our church. But the guy leading this told us, he goes, we have 13 families moving to Northwest Arkansas every single day.
Wow.
Every day?
And so every day.
It's crazy, man.
And so just knowing that, God is still in the life-changing business. The mission isn't over with. We've got work to do. And how do we go about doing that? So me and one of our other guys went and just sat in on this meet, and that's what it was, to help train local churches what you can do to engage this community. Because one thing, and we've seen it just in our ministry that we've worked, but that population, they are very community oriented. They're very, very family oriented. And so if you can create those environments that as a family they can come and participate in, they'll come out in force. There's been events that we've done that 50+% of the those that attended were of Indian descent, and they love it. They're great. They're engaging. So just how do we, earn the right to share with them of that hope of Jesus Christ? That he changed my life. He wants to change your life, and so that's really kind of the driving force. And we see it. We're seeing these people baptized. We baptized at least one individual every Sunday. Almost every Sunday so far this year. Many Sundays we baptized multiple. And so seeing that God is still faithful, that if we'll get out there and proclaim the good news, he'll reap the harvest. So
that's right.
It's our job to sow, and he'll do the reaping on his timeline. And there's been people that I've had the opportunity to share with since I've been here that have come to Christ. There's been people that I met right when I got here that I'm still sharing the gospel with, friends,
Amen.
neighbors, that I'm still working with the hope that, hey, God is going to, move on their heart and draw them to himself. And so that's what keeps me motivated in the work. I love it, and I say every Sunday that I have the opportunity to baptize, we kind of do a rotation based on availability. But I've told my admin helps coordinate a lot of that, and I've told her, I said, hey, if there's ever a need, it's someone else's turn. There's a need. Let me know. Put me in the slot. Even if I've got something else going on. Like last Sunday, I was teaching the class, but they needed somebody. And one of the couples that's in that class that I'm teaching, his good friends, I just said, hey, let everybody know I'm going to be a few minutes late. I'm going to baptize, tell them I'm baptizing. I'll be down there. We did the baptism at the start of the service. I got in there, changed, ran down there, but I've told her, I said, but when I get there in those, get in the baptism waters, I tell our church, look, this is my favorite place.
Oh yeah.
Week in and week out, like you don't have to beg me to come here and do this. Like I love doing it. A lady in my wife's D group came to Christ several years ago, but hadn't followed through in baptism. And in my wife's D group, they've been talking about baptism. Our pastor had been touching on it, and she just came under conviction, like, "Hey, I need to follow through in baptism." And so she was at our house week before last. And just, wanted to talk to a pastor about it. And so I'm sharing with her before they got started with their D group. And she's like, well, are you going to do it? Will you be the one to baptize me? I was like, I would like to, if you want someone else to do it, I'll happily, but like, you don't have to ask me to do it. Like I'll jump in there and swim laps around the baptism pool if I got to. Like, I love it. So just to see that life change is what drives me.
I love that.
Fantastic. All right, before we go today, we're going to do a little lightning round. I got some questions for you. What is the weirdest, or if you don't have a weird one, the worst job you've had outside of ministry? Just real quick.
I said the one I probably disliked the most. I was the line cook at a Pizza Hut when I was 15 years old. So the order would come in, and I was the guy who I pulled the dough, worked it down, threw it in the oven, and I was surrounded by pizza ovens. And so by the time I got done, I was covered in grease and grime. To this day, I can't eat Pizza Hut.
If you Pizza Hut, I thought you were going to say you can't eat pizza. I'm like, bro, there's no, come on.
Yeah. I just can't. I mean, I did that for about 6 months, and I was like, no, this isn't the job for me. I can't do it. So it was tough.
I can see that. I had a buddy of mine that worked at Little Caesars and had a very similar experience. And I remember one time I had to pick him up. This was, again, I was probably 17. He worked at Little Caesars. I had to pick him up, and I swear it was the worst smell when he got into the car. Like all the grease and, like you said, the grime and the sweat and just, it's like this.
He left a human-sized powder imprint on your car seat.
Oh, yeah. And I kind of determined food service is not for me based upon that car ride.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I was 15 years old, so I couldn't drive. It was right around the corner from my house, so my mom or dad or sister had to take, and they would always bring a towel so they could put a towel over the seat, and I could sit down, and I would literally walk in the door, walk into the bathroom, and strip down and get in the shower because everything was just, it was this, I mean, you were just greasy and grimy. It was terrible.
Well, speaking of food, what is the best eating spot in Bentonville? And you better not say the Subway and Walmart.
I'm not going to say the Subway and Walmart. So if you look up best barbecue places in the nation, so back in February, Yelp came out with their national barbecue ranking, and Wright's Barbecue was rated number one. They've got a few locations now. But Wright's Barbecue is 3 minutes from my house, which is really dangerous because it is Texas style. But I would have to go.
I'm hungry.
My day in and day out is Wright's Barbecue. The barbecue's great. The sides are great. It's I haven't taken anyone there yet that wasn't actually asking for another return. So Colt, speaking, you like the fun facts from my days with Xtreme and Winter Jam. So the keyboard player for New Song, then he became a keyboard player for Third Day, and then became the keyboard player for Luke Bryan, a guy named Scotty Wilbanks, dear friend of mine. Luke Bryan was in town last year, coming again this year to do a concert. Scotty and I got together. I picked him up at the venue. We went to Wright's Barbecue.
Nice.
He was like, man, this is like, I need round two while I'm here. They put it on this, they had on the calendar, Luke's coming back again this summer. And before I even realized it, I'm getting a text from Scotty going, hey, bud, I hope you're in town on this date because you're taking me to get some more barbecue.
No ifs, ands, or buts about
So,
it. Yeah.
Man, now I gotta try it, man. So I gotta find one close
Road
to
trip.
here.
Yep.
Road trip.
Yeah.
How far is away is Bentonville? I think it's like 3 hours away from here or something. I don't know.
Yeah. From Oklahoma City. I haven't made the drive from here. Our people do on a regular basis. We'll go over to Tulsa for stuff and go over to Oklahoma City for stuff. But yeah, I think it's right there around that 3 hour mark.
I love it.
Nice.
I love it. So, one of the things that, for everybody who doesn't know, we sent out a pre-interview form and asked Chris to fill out some basic information about himself, about his approach to ministry, just so we have something to jump off of. And one of the things that you talked about was the importance of leading from the middle, requiring a strong sense of security, that sometimes insecurity can put so much of a heavy weight upon ministry. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. It kind of goes back, number one, to knowing your calling. Like, hey, what has God called you to do? And I'm not going to sit here and say, I've 100% settled. There's times in life things happen that, there's a little bit of wrestling in my heart by that. But I always go back to, hey, I know I was called. What that looks like may shift a little bit from time to time, but I know God's called me where I'm at. But as kind of, the guy in the second chair, I've got a great relationship with my pastor. I think one of the things that helps me and helps him, I don't want his job. Like if he were to walk into my office today and say, I'm resigning on Sunday, sorry, bud, you're on your own. And our personnel team, our leadership were to come to me and say, Chris, what do we do? I was like, well, looks like we're looking for another pastor. I'm not the guy. I'm happy where I'm at. I'm happy to fill in and pick up where I need to get us into the next season. But knowing that here's where God has called me. I know you guys are in a growing church. A lot of times too, you've got to understand, like, hey, what is my role? What am I here to do?
Right.
And that is different from the fact that I do have opinions on other things. I'm not the children's director at our church, but I do have some ideas about children. And so, part of it's just understanding, like, hey, I'll look for opportunities where I may share. Now, hear me out. If I see something that's wrong, it is my job to address it.
Sure.
But then it's also like the children's team has a weekly meeting. I'm not invited to that meeting. And sometimes I hear stuff come out of that meeting that I'm like, ooh, I could have spoken to that. I don't need to get invited, but it does cross my mind every now and again of, hey, like, well, I could have helped if I would have, the students had a meeting. I could have helped if I was in that meeting. Well, part of it's letting them lead on their own, lead their ministry. And then understanding, hey, I'm not the student pastor. I'm not the missions pastor. And so, I think by, hey, not trying to inject myself, I do get pulled into some more stuff because people are willing to say, hey, this may touch on something that Chris has some experience with. Let's see. Our discipleship pastor, he and I've got a great relationship. And the other day he's like, hey, Chris, I know you know a lot of pastors, I'm thinking through some things in my department. Can you help me kind of brainstorm and work through some things? And so he and I sat down for about 30, 45 minutes yesterday, talking through some great ideas. And he had about 75% of the vision intact. But by the time we got done, like, hey, he'd been able to fill in that other 25%. And so, but it wasn't, forcing myself into that situation because, once again, I'm not the discipleship pastor. He knows, and he'll come listen because he knows I have a heart for discipleship. I laugh because I teach for him. Like, he will say, hey, I'm doing these classes. Chris, will you be willing to teach one of these classes? I don't have to, but I love because of that heart for discipleship.
Yeah.
And so, just understanding, like, hey, here's my role, and it's okay for other people to lead their department. I don't need to lead their department. If I'm leading their department, I don't need them. And the same thing, like, if my pastor, if he has to get down, if he has to go to all these finance meetings and he has to write policies and procedures, I'm no longer needed. So, hey, let me do my job, focus on my lane. we had a meeting, my pastor and I and another member on our staff yesterday, of something we've been trying to get up off the ground for a while. Not a major investment, but he looked at us. And he's like, Chris, like I don't want you guys doing this because I don't want to add anything to your plate. You guys got a lot going on. But we kind of looked and said, hey, it's going to take a little bit of work to get this started, but once we get it rolling, we'll be good. So we were able to take it on and just say, hey, we can help get it over that hump, get it rolling.
Yeah.
Because we can't just put it. We've actually got a layman in mind that once we get it rolling, he's going to take it over and run with it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to take us to kind of write a few little policies, like how is this going to function?
Sure.
And then use our influence to get it rolling. But then I'm going to turn it over to him. My thought on this whole this initiative that we're launching is very tiny. It's really small, but we can help get it up off the ground. That he's going to run, and then I said, and then once at that point we're hands off. That'll be the point person. He'll deal with all that stuff. So just knowing, hey, I do have a lot of opinions, but I wasn't hired to be the discipleship guy.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't hired to be the music guy. I wasn't hired to be the children's director. And hey, I don't want those jobs. Mm-hmm. And if you heard me sing, you wouldn't want me as your worship guy. And so, just understanding that, hey, it's okay to have those opinions. And I'll walk into I'll get invited to some of those meetings. I said, hey, I'm going to throw out what I think, what I've learned, what I've experienced. You do with it with what you think is best, because they've got their idea of how their ministry looks, and I may have a great idea, but it may not fit into their scope of what works. And so I don't want to throw a cog into their well-oiled machine. And so I gave an idea to our children's director the other day. I'd heard from that event down in Houston that I told you about, and I was like, that's a really good idea. And I went and told her about it. I said, hey, this is just a really good idea. Do with it what you want. But she's like, well, hey, I don't have the budget for that. It wasn't a major investment. I don't have the budget for that. And I don't know if I have the team in place. I may be able to get the team in place, but I don't have the team in place to do that. And I just said, hey, you mull it over. If it's something you want to do, obviously you have to work on the team in place. I said, but if you really want to do it, let me know and I'll figure out the budget part. Mm-hmm. That's my job. So you don't worry about the budget part. This was not on the docket when we had it. I'll get with the guys. We'll figure out, hey, how do we fund this if you want to do it? But I do really think it's a good idea. We'll find out.
Yeah.
That conversation happened 2 or 3 days ago. And so she may come back and just say, hey, it's not feasible right now, but it was just something, knowing with what they're doing in ministry, that I heard a good idea. I wanted to communicate it to her. So knowing your role and just saying, hey, this is where God's called me. And these people, our children's director, just for example, I keep using her. She's relatively new in the job, but she's an expert. She's been in childhood education. She's led at a high level, dealing with children. I have not. Mm-hmm. So it's not my job to go in and tell her how to do her job. Now, we do have to have conversations every now and again about different policies and procedures. We had one the other day on background checks, and just I say, hey, here are some things that are required. Like these are kind of our non-negotiables on bringing a new volunteer into the ministry. But outside of that, hey, you got all kinds of flexibility to do your ministry how you need to. And so sometimes people are like, hey, Chris, were you in that meeting? And I'm like, no, thank the Lord I wasn't, because I've got enough meetings in my day. I think my last count was 6 meetings yesterday. I don't need any more.
Right.
No.
And so youth
pastors
do
don't
thing.
like meetings. So I don't.
Yeah. And so, you do what, you need to do. And I'm here as a resource if I can help you. And so, I think that's the key is just, and I think that can go across the board. Now, I know I'm kind of in a unique role where, I do have to interact closely with, all departments, because it touches, finance, and all that. But, I had someone the other day from one department come to me because they didn't like something that somebody else in another department, how they would say something. And I was like, I don't have an issue with that. And that's not your job. So Yeah.
Well said. That is
opinion.
not your job, sir.
Yeah. What they're doing over here isn't a matter of right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
They're just doing it a way you don't like.
The preference. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not your job to over there. So they're like, well, what are you going to do about it? Nothing.
That's what's great about being a youth pastor. Nobody wants my job. So
no. Hey, Jonathan, I
have 200 teenagers. 200. Nobody wants my job.
As a father of a 14-year-old who's a great kid, so he is not a problem causer. He does not cause me headaches, but he does drive me insane.
Yeah.
I mean, so those of you that willingly say, "Hey, I want to serve in student ministry," like I like to go hang out with them and I'll go shoot hoops with them, but I'm like, okay, students, you guys have your thing, and get done. But man, I'm like, it's a crazy world
it is, man.
there in student ministry. So I applaud you for your effort. I love our student pastor. I tell our student pastor said, hey, I've got a kid in the student ministry. I'm the only pastor on staff that has a child in the student ministry. Some have children or they're aged out, but I'm the only one. So I've told our student pastor, say, hey, I'm your biggest fan. I love what you're doing because you're investing in my kid. And I'll go by usually on Wednesday, see our student pastor. It's like, hey, what are you preaching on tonight? And he'll tell me. Well, what I do though is I use that as a quiz for my son. So after Wednesday night, I'm like, hey, so Gunnar, what did he preach on tonight? And I kind of use that, like I know how well my son was paying attention in there, and so far he's doing a pretty good job.
All right,
that's great, man. That's great.
So, but I appreciate you guys.
Oh yeah, so Chris, we've talked through so many different things today, and as I mentioned, the Other Pastors podcast is just talking and encouraging people who have been in ministry, and just saying, hang on, hold on, because ministry there's, as I mentioned before, there are so many different podcasts out there that just. As every time I tune in, it just seems like they're talking about everything that's wrong with the church. And I'm not saying that everything is perfect by any means, but I feel like we have so much to celebrate, that God is doing so many great things in the lives of believers. And you just got to hold on and hold true to that calling, that vision that God has given you. So before we leave, I would love it if you would pray for executive pastors, children's pastors, worship pastors, everybody who listens to this thing, youth pastors, and just encourage them a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. Let's pray. Father, I just want to thank you for Colt and Jonathan for their willingness to make this investment in others. Just shows a true servant heart, Lord. I'm grateful for the calling that you've placed on our lives, those listening, the calling that you've placed on their lives, Lord. We know it's a full of hard days, often with not a lot of reward from an earthly perspective, Lord, but we know that there is a heavenly reward waiting. And so, Lord, we just submit our lives to you, submit our will to you, our plans to you, and just lay them all at the feet of Jesus, Lord, and just say, hey, you know what's best. And to help us to rest in that, knowing that you are in charge, Lord, as we lead our teams, we lead departments. Lord, I pray that you'll just give us wisdom. Help us. So much of the conflict in the church is interpersonal. Give us a tender heart to love and care for those people, even those that we feel are adamantly opposed to us. Lord, those people still need Jesus. They still need to know you. They still need to follow you and serve you. And so, Lord, help us to have tender and kind hearts just to point them back to you. So as we go about our ministry, when the days are long and the struggle is real and seemingly overbearing, Lord, I pray that you will bring the needed encouragement, bring the reminder that you are still in the life-changing business, Lord, and that we do have a calling far greater than anything else that this world has to offer. And so, Lord, I pray that we'll just be mindful. And Lord, as we seek you, I just pray that you will continue to help us pursue your will and to seek your wisdom as we continue on this journey that you've called ministry. So we love you and we praise you in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chris. Thanks
well, hey guys, I
with
appreciate, absolutely appreciate the time. And I know when you post this in the details, Colt, feel free to share my email with those listeners out there. And if I can be of any assistance to any other admin XP guys out there, or if they want to connect with the group that I mentioned in Houston, I'd be happy to share that info and would love to help guys out any way I can.
That sounds great.
Awesome. Well, you heard it, guys. If you're listening, check out the show notes for any resources and to connect with Chris But if you are watching, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, share this so we can get it out to all the other people that are listening, that are serving in the middle. Because remember, this podcast is for all type of pastors that are serving in the middle. You're serving up, down, and all around. You're not the main man on campus. You're the other pastor, and this podcast is for you. We love you, and we'll see you next time. You guys take care.
See you next time.